On this week's episode, we're back at it. Raising kids.
3?
Yes, round 3. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Counterculture Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, along with my great friend, co-host, Taylor. Okay. So, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good, dude. I'm a little worn out. As any homeowner would know, spring's coming back around. Believe it or not, Texas is confusing. So it's hot, cold. But we're pretty close enough to spring that the weeds have been growing and now the grass is starting to. So I decided to try to do some yard work, left a little early. And I mulched my front flower beds, which, as you know, my front flower bed, there's more like dirt and mulch than actual plants. I got to fill that thing up. It's like this giant island off my front porch.
It's true. But it's low maintenance, though. So that's
as it is right now.
That's what you want, right?
See, everybody likes a nice green yard, but they don't realize how much work is involved. I kind of like the Arizona yards now. You know, there was always like cacti and bull rock, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody but no, as a homeowner now, you're kind of looking at them like, dude, that's the...
Yeah, that would
get
save
a little,
me
like
so
a Zen
much.
garden with the sand. You can do a little wooden rake, like Japanese style, and just take the stress away.
It would save me so much money.
Yeah, instead of me going out there and mowing the yard, it seems like once a week once it really starts growing.
Oh, yeah.
But no, what I was going to tell you is, as you already know, there comes a time in every man's life where they get to use their truck.
Oh, yes.
You'll get back to a truck. I know
I
you're
will.
working on it.
I will.
You've had one, so I mean you already know. But
yes.
99% of the time, I would say you don't really do truck things when you own a truck. You get more friends and family that call you asking for help with said truck, moving dryers and things like that. But no, I got to use my truck. I got to grab some mulch. So little tip for those who, man, I can't believe I'm going to air out this. If you know, then this is going to sound silly, but most people don't think about this. When it's time to mulch, don't go to Walmart or Lowe's, Home Depot, any of the big box stores and grab like 20 bags of mulch. Because the thing is, you never actually grab enough. However much mulch you think you need, double it. But it ends up being like a couple $100. Mulch is expensive.
It gets pretty. It's funny. At first, you grab a bag, you're like, "Oh, it's not bad." And then you pile on, and you're like, "Oh crap! I spent a lot of money."
Right. But mulch in general, if you think about it, it's not that expensive. Think about it like when you go to the butcher aisle at the store. It's easier for you to grab fresh ground hamburger and press and form your own patties at home compared to buying the saran wrapped butcher made, patties.
Pre-made patties, yeah.
Because they double like the cost per pound because they did some of the work for you.
Yes.
Same thing with mulch. Mulch is just chewed up wood they've added some like dye and maybe a little bit of soil to it mixed up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Mulch inherently is not that expensive. So what you do is you find a mulch yard, some rock, sand, and gravel yard, some pit. I've got one right here on Old Boudreaux. It's just on the other side.
Oh yeah, I think I know what
It's
you're
tucked
talking
away.
about.
That one's called Mulch King, but they're everywhere. There's one just a quarter mile down the other way. Called him up. Do you know how much it was for a yard? Now a yard will fill up pretty much a decent sized pickup truck's bed.
Well, if I remember, you sent me a picture. The bed of your truck was full.
100% capacity.
100%. So,
I scooped some out just so I could put my tonneau down, but it was every nook and cranny.
Okay, and that's what would be a yard.
Yeah.
How
Basically,
much?
it's one bucket of one of the big front loaders.
Okay. How much?
I mean, now we just talked about like 20 bags of mulch running you like $100. So you could still put 20 bags of mulch in the back of a minivan or a pickup truck.
Yeah. So that was $100. I bet you it was only like 50.
Less.
Okay, like 30.
After tax, it was $32.
No way.
And that was for black mulch people. The nice stuff.
The good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyways, so there you go. I know we're a little bit of a tangent from the beginning.
Hey.
That's homeowners tips.
That's pro tip right there.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, you can easily get up to $150 going to Lowe's and getting the mulch. Because again, every time you go, you're not ever going to get enough.
Half the bags rip before you can even like get them where you need, and then I don't know. They're so humid. Some of them are like super humid, and they're already starting to like grow fungus inside.
Yeah,
it's better. This was fresh. I mean, the pile was so hot because it's decomposing there in a giant freaking pile.
Yeah,
that most of the mulch was almost too hot to touch.
Really?
It was that fresh. I mean, that stuff's organic matter. That's going to do wonders for my bed.
That's excellent.
Now, granted, it was a whole lot more work to shovel. And I didn't have a wheelbarrow, so I backed my truck all the way to my front flower bed, and I was just like 3 hours, man, scooping it out, spreading it, raking it. Whereas with the bags, I will say you can carry it one bag at a time to where you kind of want it, and then just cut it open. And
But you know what? Here's the thing, though. Like the other way, that's character building right there. All right, look, you're gonna. Have
they
to
both build character, but one sounds cooler when you tell a story.
It is, and it's also more cost efficient.
So
there
I
you go.
just came up with an idea too. We could do little segments like this, where it's like homeowners,
Or like
sharing
dad's
tips.
little dad pro tip. Little dad pro tip there.
and we can call it like dad's tip to tip. Something like that. Something catchy. You know what I mean?
We might have
Like
to work. We might have to work on
I
the
like
name a
it.
little bit.
Anyways. All right. So raising kids, part 3.
Yeah. Anyway.
Dude, we talked about this before. We have to get a few more
Okay.
questions
Yeah.
out.
We're gonna get through at least 4 of them today. Okay. That still leaves us with 4, but that will make it this a 4-part series because we're gonna try to so to get right into it. Right. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below. Share the show with your friends. You can find us on Apple and Spotify as well if you prefer the audio version at the Counterculture Cast on Instagram. So back to it again. This is part 3 of the Raising Kids. Real quick, this is a list of 15 rules that Sean Whalen, who's a guy that started. What I know him from is doing the company, the clothing company Lions Not Sheep, which was done during the pandemic, right? To get people, to encourage people to be more, speak up, all that kind of good stuff. And again, we have part 1 and 2 to this series. So if you happen to find us right for this someone, please go back and listen to those first 2. Right, they're really great. Second one was a little more, tangent, but we're gonna be on it there. Right, and you can also find our merch store, Teespring. We'll try to link it in the show notes and stuff like that. So, but to get right to it, all right. So we left off at number 7. Yeah. So we left off at number 8. So number 8, right, of these 15 rules, right, for raising kids is teach them to survive. Teach them to hunt, fish, build a shelter, start a fire, grow food, and find clean water.
That's important, especially if you don't know how to do that yourself. I don't know if you've taken a look around the world that we live in lately, but it's getting smaller and it's getting scarier. As far as wars, train derailments.
I don't know if you saw. President Zelensky said that America is going to need to start sending their sons and daughters to fight in Ukraine. No thanks. It's okay.
Not over my dead body.
Yeah, no, that's all right. No, thanks.
Over my dead body? Not over. Anyway, so it's like a double negative. Yeah, good luck.
Either way, no. The answer is no. No, damn it.
Yeah, no way. But that's my point. Like train derailments, crop burning, and then food shortages. The average grocery store only has food for 3 days. If they stopped getting regular shipments, the produce and the canned goods based on the demand for that area, there's only enough supply to last 3 days. Imagine if there was a Red Dawn moment, or imagine if there was some kind of, I don't even want to say attack on foreign soil, but something that caused people to have to like shelter and hide, natural disaster, anything. Not enough people have enough food stores to be able to make it. I've been trying to stock up on canned goods just little by little as I go. I got a few more things. So I got a good little collection of beans and corn and things like that. But that's not a necessity. We still use that stuff. But I don't have like any of the bug out stuff where it's like the 12-week emergency Costco, prepper kits, the big buckets or anything like that. I should probably start looking into that. But the point is, those even only help you in a pinch. Watch, like some of my favorite shows are all post-apocalyptic with like Last of Us, Mad Max, like all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Walking Dead before we kind of went downhill. But you need to learn how to survive. Like those people, if anything actually happened like that, how are you going to survive? If you don't know, then you can't teach your kids. But it could be a moment where you take the opportunity to learn and create moments and bonds with your kids too. Teach them how to start a fire. Teach them how to fish. It doesn't have to be all, super extreme. Like we're going to learn how to go, make your own bow and hunt rabbits. It can start small. Teach them how to fish. Teach them how to, bait a hook, set a hook. how to clean a fish once they get it. That way they're not all squeamish. Like there's parts, my son already knows how to do, I would say, most of the fishing part, and he's watched fish be cleaned and he's eaten it like right then and there. We threw it in the grease and he ate it. Like, so he saw it from like, I caught this, I saw it be, caught, cleaned, filleted, battered, fried, and he ate it and he loved it. So like, I think that's important because I personally don't like fish. It's something that if out of necessity, if I had to, of course I would, but start them young, man. They don't
Lent is a real pain in the ass, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyways, I did not go to the Ash Wednesday.
Oh, I'm terrible. I gave up everything but water for Lent. Oops. It's
Friday's cheat days, right?
Technically Sunday. I don't like to follow that rule just because it seems like a cop out.
I appreciate that.
But I did genuinely forget. So, but I can't let this go to waste. So I will finish this glass and have no more.
I don't think the podcast counts. You got to give the people what they want.
Well, I guess it's true.
You're still a decent person. I won't hold it over you.
I mean, somewhat depends.
But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's my answer in a nutshell. If you don't know, then you can't teach them, but you can take the opportunity to teach both of yourselves. I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously couldn't agree more, and I take that as, from my perspective, definitely from the point of view of teaching it myself. Because I mean, I don't pretend to be like. I grew up in suburban America, right? I grew up, middle class, upper middle class, like. That's where I was, right? My parents weren't about that, right? I didn't learn any of that kind of stuff, right? Now, but I value it extremely, especially after the events of the last several years, of the importance of self-sustainability, right? Being able to take care of yourself, right, and not rely on outside sources if necessary, I think is very crucial. So. For me, I think taking pride in being able to do those things is important, right? Because even like the one thing like growing your own food, like not this year but last year, right? We have two like little garden little beds in the back of our house now, and we were growing like some vegetables that we used, right? Which is cool, right? And again, it's the same concept like with the fish, right? Like it's cool when you can go outside, grab like a jalapeno or basil.
Tastes better too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like knowing you did it.
Yeah, it makes you like, oh, this is cool. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value in doing that. And again, self-sustainability. We even talked about the next house because again, we're renting the house right now. But when we buy our next house, I have convinced Christina like we're gonna get chickens. It's gonna happen.
Good luck.
It's gonna happen.
These HOAs are pretty tough. I know Texas they say an HOA can't, but then there could be deed restrictions. Depends on what you sign.
Yeah, it's true. So hopefully everything being like the biggest hurdle is Christina was like, yeah, we can do it. So
with the price of these eggs. So.
I mean, I really hope so because I would love to have chickens, dude. Again, like just like 3 or 4, right? Nothing crazy. Oh, it'd be so awesome.
Hey,
build a coop in the back. Oh man. Anyway, so yeah. So I mean that again, that's very basic. I think again, teaching them self-sustainability. Right, is crucial, and also like you said, like they'll be able to take pride in those things because
those are life skills,
right?
But like life skills that could actually save your life. I mean, you can be snowboarding and get caught in an avalanche, and like, how do you know how to survive a situation like that? Like, how do you test if you're upside down when you're snowed in? Like, the whole spit trick, you can like spit so you know which way to dig. That way, you're not digging the wrong direction, and what little energy you have, you've wasted digging the wrong way when you're caught, trapped in an avalanche. Like things that, I don't know, seem simple or common sense, but you can learn little things. Teach how to make a fire. Or even if you don't know how to make a fire, teach your kids how to be prepared, keep waterproof matches in their vehicle at all times, or things like that. Like there's ways to be prepared without having to be like, the Ron Swanson character from episode 3 of The Last of Us, the one we were talking about, they made them all.
I haven't seen Last of Us. So.
You haven't? Okay, good. But he's the ultimate prepper. Like he's the ultimate like gung-ho American. Like, yeah, screw the government. Like he's totally overly prepared. Like cameras around his house. He's got a hidden basement under his basement. Like so he's super prepared. But I don't think we all have to go to that extreme in order to be able to survive
Yeah,
there
you,
was some
you don't have
kind
to be a
of-
prepper. Although, I think lately, right, the preppers have been the ones that I've been left laughing at the end. So it's
Yeah, I
like,
told you so.
it's not so funny now, is it?
Yeah.
Especially like you said with food. And again, like we are so fortunate, right, that we like the infrastructure of the United States is such a well-oiled machine. Even
that we
when
take
we're-
it for granted.
Yeah, even though it's ran by incompetence, even sometimes as well. But you take it for granted, right? And again, it's like it could easily, in moments, if it broke down enough, right, you would have nothing available. And so, what do you do, right? What do you do, right? So, teach your kids self-sustainability, right? Very simple, very straightforward, right? And again, this is in line with like the financial one that we talked about either last episode or the episode before about teaching them about business. Like again, the average person, do they know that stuff? No, but it would behoove you, right, to learn it and to just start that journey, right? You don't have to be a pro, right? You don't have to be like an expert, right? And the good thing is because there are plenty of resources to be able to find the answers, right?
Google is free.
Google is free, and so is YouTube. Subscribe. So the next one, all right, rule 9, teach them manners. Please and thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Should never be encouraged, but expected. If you have no manners, neither will they. All right. So there's actually two things there.
Yeah.
There's actually 2 things. So yeah, go ahead.
So that's how I was raised. And that's how I show respect, not just to elders, of course, but to peers or even people who are like superiors. You can have a boss younger than you, but you can still use your manners, and if they bridge that gap and they're like, hey, drop the whole sir thing. I'm Derek, I know I'm technically your boss, but just call me Derek. At that point, fine. You've worked through that, but initial introductions, I think it's really important. And that's something that my wife didn't necessarily have to do growing up. But that's how I was raised. Yes, sir. No, sir. If I said yeah, my dad would be like, what? Yeah? Or almost sometimes come back there, like, what'd you say? Sorry. No, sir. Like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, I don't know. We also grew up in the generation like where we got spanked. So there was this weird transition.
Some of us did.
You never got spanked?
I mean, I did. But I'm just saying, like most millennials were not.
Right. It depends.
Like a lot of Gen X parents really dropped the ball because people were like, look at these millennials. Well, who's responsible for a lot of these millennials? Gen X parents. So, thanks.
That's a fair point.
And they were ruined by boomers, right? It's a whole thing.
Yeah, it was this overcorrection that we talk about a lot and we see a lot in everything we discuss. But I'm not going to be like my dad who didn't show love. And then you have these overly coddling parents who the dad's kind of like more of a beta because he doesn't know how to be a man. He's just like overly loving. He's like, you got a mother, you got a father. I understand you can kind of be like, I love my kids and I show them affection all the time, but they also need to see that there is a strength in the household too, is what I'm getting at. But there's this overcorrection that happened to the point where there was no backbone. It's like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. We're not strict in this house. Like, I wasn't so strict that I had to take my shoes off before I went upstairs. It wasn't like that kind of strict, but some people grew up like that and then they end up having kids of their own. They're like, you can wear your shoes wherever you want, because when I grew up, I wasn't allowed to wear shoes in the house. I still think that
my parents made me take my shoes off, so I'm not gonna.
There's this resentment there.
Yeah.
We saw that with the whole, no hit kind of movement with kids, or you couldn't spank your kids in public without people like calling the cops on you, or it was just weird. Well, that overcorrection also went into the whole manners thing for me, is that we see a lot of that being lost with today's youth growing up, today's society. I wanted that for my kids. So it's kind of really important, like we've talked about too, when you're courting somebody and you're finding, what your values are, because if not, marriage isn't going to work. You got to kind of hash those things out early on.
Yeah.
So I knew this was something that was going to be kind of a compromise for me and my wife. She didn't have to do that. She showed respect, but it was kind of laid back. It wasn't like yes or no, sir. It was like yes or thank you, the please, all that, but it wasn't quite that military sir, ma'am. So we compromised on, with my kids, yes, mom, no mom, yes, dad, no dad.
We do the same thing.
Do
that
you
is
really?
So funny. Yeah.
And now my son, this last few months, I've noticed he's switched and he's doing yes sir, no sir on his own accord. I didn't push that. Maybe my dad's come over a few times and babysat and been like, "What'd you say?" That's fine, secondhand parenting.
What was that? Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and I think what's important from what he said is two things. Is it's not that it should never be encouraged. It should be expected. I think that's a big thing. Actually, I was talking about with a good friend of mine this on Monday. We went out to dinner and caught up, and we were talking about how when we go out, and I think I've mentioned this before. When we go out, we get complimented all the time about how well behaved our kids are.
I don't get complimented necessarily when I'm out, but the feedback I get from people who've watched my kids, or especially teachers, other faculty that is not even part of my son's like homeroom. It's like the gym teacher or one of the assistant principal who's like at the car rental line, like, "You're Titus's parents?" We're like, "Yes." Like, this is the most like well-mannered kid. Like, it is amazing. He holds the door for people, says yes ma'am, no ma'am, and we're just like, that is like a moment of pride. As a parent.
Well, and it's the same thing. Yeah, I mean, and so that's awesome. But again, because that happened, and people are like dumbfounded. Like, it's like because I expect them to do that.
Yes.
And I think like when you say that, there are some people that still like don't understand that, and it's very simple. It's like if you expect them to do it, they will do it, right? And the same way though, right? It's caught, not taught, right? So you have to display behavior of being respectful of people, things like that as well, and then they will do. Now, granted, when you're a grown adult, you don't do yes ma'am or yes sir as often, right? But you still can show the same sort of attitude of respect towards people, whether it's your parents, your in-laws, right? And dealing with those dynamics around your kids, right? They need to see, right, you showing them respect, right? So that they do it, right? Because again, I expect my kids to be well behaved. I expect them to because for me, it's also is, again, if I am focused on that, right, they'll do it when I'm not around, right? And that's what's most important, right? To the point with Titus, which is even like, because like, yeah, we get told that our kids are great, and are well behaved together, right? Yeah. But with your example, right, it's Titus's, you're not around, it's him at school and how he's interacting with the kids and with the teachers and adults around him.
Well, that's where the expectation comes from. We're talking about. It's one thing like, ooh, this is what dad wants, so I'm just going to do what he wants because he's here to watch me. Mm-hmm. But when it's a value that they know is an expectation of them, and it's more of a lifestyle, they carry that on, and that's what you hope. You can't just beat it into them, because then they're only going to do it for you and not take those lessons and apply it to life.
Yeah, and that's when like that unhealthy resentment can come from as well.
These are sticky today.
A little bit. You know what I mean? Like that is where that can come from. And so again, there's a careful balance, but again, you have to have expectations, right? And that's where we're like, for us, like it's like yes mom, no dad in our house, right? That's what I don't need yes sir, no no ma'am, right? Or yes, all that kind of stuff, right? I just need, okay, you were you acknowledge that, right? And sometimes it's like, yes, dad, right? Or whatever, because they're at an age where there's there's a little bit of an attitude sometimes, right? Not, I don't know where they get it from, right? I never have a bad attitude with anybody, so I'm not sure where they get it from. But
but they're still kids, they're still young. I mean, there's going to be attitude.
Yeah, well, they're people. Yeah, they're not going to like
my son's when you
punish
the age
them
where
a
he
little bit.
Will throw something down when he's upset and like look at you. But the moment he threw it, he like knows like, oh, I fucked up.
Yeah, he's like, and you're like, oh yeah, you're a big guy, right? You want to play a game, right? Because even like with Eli, like he's like he'll get obviously him and his sister rough house a little bit, right? Which is okay. But then there's been some times where I think he recognizes he's stronger, and so he'll take advantage of him. And I'll totally be like, you want to play games like that? You want? And he's like,
gonna learn today.
Yeah, he's like, no, I don't, right? Because he knows, right? Like I'm not gonna like beat him, right? But he knows.
You mean you're not gonna roundhouse him?
Yeah, I'm not gonna just roundhouse kick him to the side of the temple. You know what I mean, right? But he recognizes, right, that like that you don't do that, right? Yeah. It's not cool, right? But again, it's all about anything, right? It's setting levels of expectation, right? And you can have expectations because even like it's small things like this is something from Jordan Peterson talks about with kids. He's like, involve them, right, in the day-to-day chores of the house, right?
They were doing mulch today. I had them both in the back of my truck filling up buckets.
But you know what? I bet you they were having a great time doing it, right?
They wanted, my kids asked to help.
And see, okay, and this is to what Jordan Peterson says is like, if they ask to help, you need to invite them into that, right? Because they're not gonna do it. Like, this is something I had to learn. Like with when it came to like breakfast, like on weekends or like dinner, right? Allowing the kids to set the table, right? And he talks about this, and I had to get over this, right? Because so some things I can be like a kind of a freak about it. It's like, okay, no, like this needs to go here, this needs to go here, right? And not only Jordan Peterson, I don't know, but my wife as well was like, you gotta just let them just. I know it's not, but I know the fork's not placed perfectly. I know the plate is gonna be on the edge of the table, right? But you have to let them do it. Right, and allow them to feel like they're part of it, right, and part of the family routine, right? Especially the things like, again, because gathering for meals is such a big deal for anybody, right? Gathering for a meal with whether it's friends, family, it's a very important ritual, right? As humans, right, the ritual of sharing a meal, right? So inviting them into that, right, inviting them into the preparation of it, right, putting the glasses on the table, right, or whatever for now they have plastic, so they drop it, whatever, right?
Or even to the opposite of cleaning up afterwards.
Yes, and that as well. Like that's funny. They're expected, right, to pick up their own plate and put it in the sink. Mom and dad are not picking it up after you. You need to put it away, right? And so if they run off, be like, did y'all forget something?
Their own plates, put them on the counter. Every now and then, like my wife will send me like videos where she's got like my middle daughter. It's so weird to say.
I know.
It used to be youngest for the longest time. But she'll have her like on one of the dining room chairs is like a bench. So she moves it over to the sink. So my daughter's standing on the bench and she's washing dishes in the sink. And you're like, oh, like you're going to break something. Half of it's like ceramic or glass. Like no, you gotta let them do it. Yeah. It's not gonna be the cleanest, but it's, again, making them apart. My son was asking for a napkin. He was trying to climb the counter. And I yelled, I'm like, stop climbing. You're not supposed to climb. It's like, Dad, can I get a napkin? I'm like, is it for your hands? Like, are you just wanting to wipe your hands? Because if so, there's a cup towel that you can dry your hands off in the drawer. By then, he'd already come back. He was cleaning the table, the little pasta he spilled, he's scooping it into his own hand. He wanted a napkin so he could wipe down and clear his mess. I didn't ask him to. And typically, that's something that once I'm done with the kitchen, you go and wipe everything down. It's one of the last things you do. So it's like, it's funny that we're talking about these rules and that we're bringing this up for an example, because that's something he's starting to do on his own. It's one thing to have to like try to twist their arm and like get some help. The thing that and actually I give myself a little pat on the back. The last several weeks, I've been stressing the importance of keeping a tidy house. My kids have been leaving the bathroom a wreck after they both shower, towels on the floor, their dirty clothes they haven't gone and put in the hamper. They leave shoes either kicked off at the bottom of the stairs or somewhere in the playroom
and you're
upstairs.
Like, time out. Nope, we're not doing this. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I'm blessed enough to have some common spaces in my house where like I have a playroom upstairs, things like that. But what they end up turning into is easily just dumping grounds. So what we had to start doing is we could either make it a routine that right before bed when nobody wants to, we have to all powwow together and clean together. And we've done that a few times, but I've been trying to teach them, like, if you just do this right when you walk out of the bathroom.
As you're doing stuff, right, it's no big deal.
And I guess it's starting to catch on because you went dinner and then it's not just doomsday upstairs all the time anymore. Now it's like a little bit like, oh, there's a few things. Let's do this. And then I'll go make your popcorn. You can watch a show for 20 minutes before we go to bed. It's starting to improve. And I think they'll carry on those lessons into their adulthood and young adulthood, I should say. But if you wait until it's too late, I mean, I've seen the results of parents who are too lenient or they do everything for their kids and you wait later on in life and they're the ones who lash out.
Yeah.
They're the ones who push back against society and say, why not? Or I deserve this. I'm owed this. And I'm not having that. Not with my kids.
Yeah. And I think, and what's important about that, right, is from the parental perspective, right, is showing the kids gratitude when they do those things, right? It's very important to recognize and edify them when they do the things that you want them to do, right? Because if you do not do that, right, they'll stop doing it, because part of it is that your kids do want to make you happy. They want to make you proud, right? And so it's important to acknowledge and edify when they've done something that you want them to do, right? Whenever they clean the kitchen or they pick up their plates without you asking them to do it, right? Because they're kids, right? You're gonna have to ask them.
But as adults too,
you know,
we lose fault. Every now and then we're like, yeah, you should have done that the first time. I shouldn't have had to ask. Or you're like, why should I thank you for this when it's something you should be doing already? We can get so caught up because our day to day as adults, we got a lot of stresses. We got a lot of responsibility, and we got caught up in the routine. That's not fair to kids. And this goes back to probably that first episode of this series when we were talking about these rules. Is as parents, we need to check ourselves, no matter, remove ourselves from our day to day, and realize we've got to be what's best for these kids and help guide them. And to that point, gratification, like telling them thank you or good job, or like, this is a good job. This is what I expect. You can kind of give that to them. Like, yes, this is the expectation, but give them a pat on the back at the same time.
Yeah.
And then it makes them want to do it better and quicker the next time without asking.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's where, like, I think I've told this story, maybe not. So this was about a week or so ago.
About a week ago.
The kids were in the living room. They had all their toys out there playing, right? And then we were going to go, right? We had to leave to go do errands and stuff. And I asked them a couple times, like, hey, like, you need to clean up your stuff, right?
You mean they didn't do it the first time?
They did not do it the first time.
I usually get to like number 5 times asking, and then it's like,
you're way more patient than I am.
The belt comes out. I'm just kidding. I've never used the belt.
They got, for me, it's a 3-strike policy, right? If I ask you, if I have to ask you for after the third time, or you ask you 3 times, after that it's 3 strikes, you're out. Like, you're going to be in trouble. So I asked. So the second time, Eli started cleaning up his toys, right? I was like, Eli, clean up your toys. Lila, clean up your toys. Like, 'cause they're both there. They're playing kind of separately, right? I came back, had to ask Lila again. You need to clean up your stuff, right? I come back for the third time. Not only has she not done any progress, she's actually gotten worse, but she got more toys out. And so I said, you need to clean up your toys right now because we need to leave, or you're going to go in timeout, right? I leave, got to do this. I come back, nothing has happened. I said, okay, Lila, I told you, right, that you're going to go in timeout. So this is an important thing. Like, whenever you make a threat, right,
you got to stick
to it. So she went off to timeout. She was crying and all that kind of stuff, right? I said, Eli, I need you to pick up Lila's toys, right? Because this needs to be cleaned up, please. And he said, okay, whatever. He said, fine. I said, you do that, I'll think of something to give you, okay? And so he cleaned up all her toys, right? Cleaned up everything. I had her come back outside, or I had her come back, sit on the couch, and I said, and Eli was sitting in the living room as well. And I went over to the kitchen, grabbed a little container we have of candy. I came over to him. I said, pick out anything you'd like, right? Right, and I let him. He went through, right. He pulled out a ring pop, right, which are awesome, right. They're so good.
Was she still in timeout, or was she?
No. She was sitting watching this happen. I pulled her out of timeout. She sat on the couch.
That's
she watched
something
him.
I would do.
Yeah, she watched him
like
pick.
The dick
and I looked at her. I said, "You are not going to get a piece of candy." I said, "The reason why is he not only picked up his toys, but he picked up your toys. He's getting candy for doing what you were supposed to do." Mm-hmm. Do you understand, right? And she started getting upset and crying.
She's like more upset by that, not getting candy than even being in trouble.
Yeah, because she thought, she's going to get candy. No, she's not, right? And she has to sit next to her brother, right, while we're getting done, while he's eating his candy, and she gets nothing, right? Because it's not that he got candy for cleaning up his toys. That's what he's expected to do. He got a reward for doing extra, right?
He could have said no or pushed back or why, that's not my toys. He just said, okay.
Yeah. But I did tell him right before. I said, clean up her stuff and I'll think of something to give you. He said, okay. Yeah, okay. Right.
Yeah, I forget what my daughter did a while back. It was like a month or 2 ago, but she was pushing buttons and not listening, and I ended up putting her to bed at like 6:45.
Early bed. Hey, I've pulled that card a couple times.
I've never had to follow through with that, or like I've threatened it or gotten closer, or like, oh, let's go, and then they break down. I'm like, all right, the last chance, blah, blah, blah. No, this time I was like, that's it. I made her go brush her teeth. I like hovered over her, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And my son got to stay out, and she knew it. And he was on his iPad and the, chill time before it was time for him to go to bed. And it was probably like a Friday, or I don't even think it was a school day next day. So it was like, they didn't have to go to bed early, but I made her go to bed, and she was freaking out and crying, hysterical, can't breathe, like hyperventilating, like go back in there and like, no, like you did this. I told you. And then like, well, can Titus come to bed then? I'm like, no, he doesn't need to go to bed. Well, I'm in here by myself. And it's like, all right, I'll leave the door cracked. I mean, you've got 16 nightlights in here, so it's not like you're, in the dark. I'm not bad. But yeah, like it was tough. As a parent, that's tough.
It is. I
don't
don't
want your
have
kids to
pleasure out of making my daughter cry or my son get upset, but at the same time, you have to teach, because we've done early bedtime for we've pulled that for both of the kids. Again,
but once you do it, then the next time you give the first chance, second chance, you don't get to the third strike as often.
Because they know, they recognize,
Like, he's
they
gonna
mean
do
what
it.
they say, right? And there's a
Yes.
lot of value in, again, just following through with the things that you say you're going to do.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
because
Whatever it is.
life is not going to be as generous as parents are.
Mm-hmm.
Life's, I mean, nature is metal, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's like it'll chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
If you don't have the balls as a parent to do what it takes, then life unfortunately will for your kids, and by then it's going to be too little, too late. So do what's necessary as parents, and I mean that's the pill we all have to swallow. It's not easy. I guess you fear that one day they're going to look back and resent you, but honestly, if you do the job right, then you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. Everything will work itself out, and they'll respect you more because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I think as far as that particular one, I think that covers it, because again, it's just, you have to create the good foundation for them, and that'll create good habits, going forward, for them. So the next one, Rule 10, right? Rule 10 is,
There's 15, right?
yes, give them all of you. Let them see you cry. Let them see you rage. Never hide your feelings or emotions from them.
I don't know. That one's a toughie. They definitely see me rage.
Well, I think that's every dad. Everybody's seen their dad, kind of,
That's fair.
get upset,
Fair
right?
point.
Yeah.
But like, even if I'm bickering with my wife, I don't hide that from my kids. Partly, you could say it's because maybe I'm not as good of a human being as I should be. I can't wait to go behind closed doors. But no, we'll hash it out. Sometimes voices elevate or raise a little bit, but sometimes we just send the kids upstairs, but it's not like they're immune to it. They kind of know what's going on. But at the end of it, we always reconcile, me and the wife, whatever, and the kids come back down. Sometimes we explain it to them like, hey, mom and dad, But the thing is, it's a teaching moment. There's not going to be any of this like, my mom and dad were perfect. They never fought. That's the illusion of what marriage is like. No, marriage is fucking hard work. And I knew when my parents were fighting growing up, they were probably better than me, because sometimes they'd bicker and then they'd go off into the room, but you could still hear it, sometimes elevated voices. And I don't know. I think that the kids need to see that and see all sides. As far as the sad side, I think my wife's seen me cry maybe twice. Like, that's just, as a man, I think that's a harder emotion to show. I think it's something that as men we bottle up more. So I guess as far as men's mental health, I know that's becoming a more growing trend as of late. So that kind of goes a long way. But maybe if you can learn to let it go, let it out a little bit more, then I think it helps everybody. And if you can let it out enough for your wife, then yeah, let your kids see it. Don't hide it. But I think that's something that, with me at least personally, that's a little bit harder side to show. But my kids know when I'm vulnerable. They know when I'm stressed out, or whenever I'm anxious or tired. I've had a long day and I'm a little bit more agitated. They see all of it, and I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think that it's all comes with, I think, a balance, right? I mean, I think
right,
it's
you can't
important
just be
for
the
you to
sad
allow.
dad all the time.
Well,
crying.
I think part of it is, if you do that, like, you just kind of look like a bitch, so you got to kind of get over it.
See,
So-
I was gonna be nice. I was gonna say a wimp, but yeah,
But
exactly.
And again, and I'm not saying that if a man cries that he is a wimp, right? I guess, to be more, but I think it is important to allow yourself to feel the range of emotions that you're feeling, and sometimes it's gonna express itself in an outward manner, and that's okay, right? It's all right to do that. It's okay for your kids to see if you're sad, or see if you're happy, right? Because I think there's also the other side of that, right? You could be, expressing huge amounts of joy, right? And allow them to see that, right? Allow them to see, allow them to see the range of emotions that you feel, right? Because that is real life, I think, and again, there's plenty of times where me and Christina can get into it sometimes, right? And, we reconcile, we apologize. And again, the kids can sometimes see it happening, right? Or if we're in the car or whatever.
There's no hiding it in the car.
Yeah. When you're in the car, there's no hiding.
Kids, put your headphones on.
Yeah. But, I think that is absolutely true. I think you shouldn't hide the fact that sometimes you're going to disagree, right? Because I think, again, when it comes to the marriage aspect, if your kids have this illusion that mom and dad never fight, they have this unrealistic expectation in their relationships that if there's any sort of fighting or disagreement, right, then there's something wrong with it, right? And so therefore that either means that they won't have any sort of friction or will avoid conflict, right? And that could grow resentment in their own relationships they have, right? And wonder, well, mom and dad had a perfect relationship, why isn't my relationship working like theirs or whatever, right?
Yeah, and
so
it
I
takes
think,
them like going to their parents later. It's like, why did you and mom never fight? I'm always fighting. They're like, what?
and they're like, yeah, we fought.
We fought all the time.
We just basically they say we would go and deal with it privately so the kids wouldn't see it.
But how is that fair to the kid who grew up with that false mentality?
Right. And so I think there's a fine line in this specific, in this rule, because I think there's you can easily go into, yes, this is healthy amount of showing your kids, what's going on, but then it tilts very easily into, this is really unhealthy and it's not really doing anyone any favor, especially if you want to talk about, it says, let them see you rage. I don't think this guy is interpreting like you're just like screaming and throwing stuff, right? Because that is not healthy.
Healthy anger, and then there's anger problems.
Well, yeah, there's healthy anger, there's righteous anger, there's things to be genuinely angry about. And it's okay for them to see that, right? It's okay for them and again, sometimes you're not going to hide it because sometimes you're going to be angry at them, right?
Like anytime I get behind the wheel of a car and somebody cuts me off, it's not like...
Yeah, sometimes I have choice words and I need to try to control myself, but people are so stupid when they're on the road.
But yeah, like when you're having like a marital dispute or something, if you like punch a hole in the walls, that's not something the kids should really see. That's not, let them see you rage.
Yeah, but it's also if you're doing that, you should probably get some help.
But also as a parent, like, yes, your kids can see that dad's not invincible. Dad's human too. Maybe they learned that earlier than later in life. They can see dad cry, but too much of that's a problem. I think we were kind of touching base on it, but you need, at the same time, a father needs to be the rock. Let the mother be the empathetic one, the one who can like cry with them and all that.
Well, she's the emotional thermometer of the household, right?
Yes.
I mean,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So
Carla said it. So it's
really?
good. Yeah.
Was that wasn't with us though, was it?
Maybe it was.
Anyways,
probably.
Props. But my point is, there's a balance, like you keep saying, but I think from the father aspect, let them see the anger side and when you're happy, hangry, all of that, anxious. But if they see you worried and stressing all the time,
they see me hangry quite a bit.
Right. Especially because I intermittent fast still. So like if it's before noon, like, why is church taking so long? This freaking homily is 20 minutes. It should be 15 minutes,
Listen, Padre, I get it. All right.
But yeah,
get out of here.
You need to be the rock. You need to be you're the framework of the house. You hold up the roof, so to speak, as a father. And that's why fatherless households are what they are. It's so important to have a strong father figure in a house, but not just strong, but empathetic, loving, supportive, all of that. So let them see all those sides, but you can't just be a freaking wimp at the same time. You can't always be breaking down like, how are we going to pay these bills?
Well, it's healthy. It's a healthy masculinity,
yes.
Right? And that's, again, to your point, that's where it's important that, having a mother and a father in the same household, right, married, is so important because the balance of the feminine and the masculine together is what can build a strong household. And you cannot do it without one or the other. Although, right, fun fact, right, when you look at the statistics, right, of children that grow up in single father homes and children who grow up in a household with mother and a father, right, the likelihood of them going into like jail, all kind of stuff is actually the same. It only gets worse when it's a single mother.
I'm telling you, you need
Just
that structure.
just food for thought. I don't know. Just food for thought.
It doesn't mean they're going to be happy. Okay. There's something to be said.
Who-
They may be out
who
of
need-
jail.
Who needs to be happy?
They may not be in jail. They may be in the military for life because that's where dad kind of pushed them to or something. They may not have received as much love as they needed as a child, but they're not in jail. They're at least paying their taxes, being an upstanding citizen, I guess. So there's that.
Wow. I'll go into that more maybe next episode or the episode after. I know that was kind of fascinating. It's some stats I was looking at. Anyway, so yeah. So again, I think the best thing again to round from that is show your kids a healthy range of emotion because you are human. You do show emotions. I mean, you can't control your emotions, and you should. You should not allow your emotions to control you, right? A healthy amount, right? So they realize that it's okay to express emotions. It's okay to express if you're angry or upset, whatever, in a healthy manner, right? It's the same thing like
Well, not only just healthy, but in the proper amounts too. If you're
Yes.
showing them everything, all of it, all of the time, kids pick up on that. And in my opinion, you don't want to stress out your own kids. They need to be innocent. They need to live their life as children. And if you're pushing outward all of your stresses and concerns, they're going to pick up on that, and then they're going to be stressed.
Yeah, and I have to, for me, I know, some days, with what I do, dealing with people all day is that because I deal with people, sometimes you have a crappy day, and so I have to like gather myself, and like just kind of relieve, be like, look, yes, this happened, but your kids are waiting for you. They're going to be happy to see you. So you need to be prepared to receive them in a good way. Cause you don't want to have a situation where, they're like, dad, and you like, and you're not, and you kind of basically like kind of push them away because you're still pissed off about what some guy or some person said to you that day or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's where a good wife can come into.
That as well. Absolutely. 100%.
Just like, I'm not even being like sexual. I'm just talking like,
oh yeah.
I mean, that always works, ladies.
That always helps. But no, but even outside of that,
But they know how to just take that load off, put it on their shoulders just for a little bit, and how to like
help you decompress.
But that's what a partner is there for.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So
whereas a kid's not going to know, they're not going to know how. So
yeah, all they recognize is that
is important.
All they recognize is that I was happy to see dad. Dad's not happy to see me. What did I do wrong? Right. So you don't want that to happen. So the next one is, all right, rule 11. Yeah, 11. Build a relationship with them. They deserve more than your clients, golf buddies, or girlfriends.
I don't have that problem. I think that's a selfish thing.
Ask them questions. Find out what they love. Ask them what they fear. Actively be invested in a relationship with them.
See, I've always had a close group of friends. I've never had like all these, I guess, acquaintances. You get some people with these like long, like friend groups. I've got like a couple people that if you want to be a part of my life, then they make an effort. And those people are the ones who are there forever. Like I'm in their wedding, they're in mine. We can talk, every other month or something. And it's like no time's passed. And we go visit. It's like we pick up. Other than that, we're doing our own lives. And those are the core group of friends. And that's what I have. So I don't have the distraction, the golf buddies, on Tuesday's a guy's night and we go to Poets and we throw darts and nobody make plans on Tuesday because Tuesdays are for me. Like,
yeah,
I don't have that problem. So I'm not pulled 6 different directions from my children. I made a commitment when I chose to have kids young that what was important to me was not partying and having friends. I wanted to start a family. So me personally, I don't see that being an issue. So that rule is already second nature to me. I will say, my kids are really close to me. It's hard for me to get 2 hours to go play a video game every now and then if I want to, just because even then I feel guilty. Like I'm not with my kids, but, I used to be really, really big into working out.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going during work. So during my lunch break. So I'm going about 4 or 5 days a week again, which feels good, by the way. But I used to go like 6 days a week and I would need at least a minimum of 2 hours. That's fine when you're dating somebody. That's fine when you're engaged. That's even fine when you're even married, because guess what? They're going to the gym with you too. And then afterwards you go and get burgers and beers together. You're adults doing adult things. It doesn't matter if you have work the next day because you got other than paying for what you need, life's easy. Life's simple. Well, we chose to have kids. So me trying to transition out of that phase was a little bit of a learning curve. It's like, okay, I'll leave work. I'll try if I can leave work by 4:30, then I can get a good like hour and a half in and then still be home in time to kind of help out or be a part of like the preparation for dinner, setting the table rather than just sitting down and being served kind of things like that, which that's not fair to a spouse. So it was hard for me to kind of pull away from that. And the problem is I pulled away so much out of feeling like I was being selfish or missing out on family time because there's only a few hours, especially when they're back then when how little they were asleep at like 7:00.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like, I'm seeing my kids because I'm leaving for work in the morning. So other than that, I'm seeing them for what, an hour or so a day, unless I needed help in the middle of the night or something. It wasn't fair. So I felt selfish. So I pulled away. But then the problem was what? Getting back in the groove of going to the gym.
Yeah.
How do I start again? So I don't take away from any family time. I could get up super early, but I'm not a morning person like that. My dad was the type to get up at like 4 and go work at Bally Fitness before starting his job at like 7:30. Props, Dad, but that's not me. I'm like the afternoon type person. So because I can't sacrifice afternoon time to be away from family, I go during lunch now. I'll get like a solid hour in, feel good, and I'll go back to work.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, when I read that, I think, for a lot of guys, depending on your career, that can, and this is just men in nature, right? We get very sucked in and very committed to what we're doing work-wise, right? Especially if you're a husband and a father, because that is the thing that's providing the lifestyle
the stereotype
for
in all
your
these
kid.
like 90s movies. It's like Family Man, all that. It's like the dad never has time.
Or Liar Liar.
Liar Liar.
I love that movie so
Dad,
much.
you promised. Jingle All the Way.
Yeah.
That's the one with Arnold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like these workaholic dads, like if it was shot from a different angle, it could be about, man, this dad works so hard to try to provide the lifestyle that he's giving for these kids. But in these family sitcoms, it was always like, this dad doesn't realize what's important, what he's truly missing in life. So yeah, to that aspect, especially if you're the breadwinner, it's hard. I have the luxury that I'm kind of salary. So long as my getting done, there's maybe days I work late but there may be days I get to kind of come home and freaking spread mulch like I did today at like 2:00. But not everybody has that luxury, especially if you're blue collar or if you're going and you're like a roughneck and you're like 2 on, 1 off or 3 on. That's hard. So it makes you want to like make the time more important while you are here. I know I cut you off. You're going, but
No, you're good. No, I think it's good. I think you elaborated on the point really well, which is like, I don't think there is. I think it's a careful balance because I don't shame any guy for being focused in his career and working hard because that's how you advance. It's how you make more money. It's how you provide, right? I think what it is and the challenging thing is being able to detach yourself from the workday to transition.
Don't bring it home with you. You're kind of
right, and that can be very tough. Like from someone like me, right, who I work from home 100% now, right, and so my work is just down the hall, right, and everything. And there's been a couple of times where I've gone like, oh, I just want to go look at something real quick, and Christina's like, your day is done. Like, why? Like, what difference does it make? And it's like, I'm like, you're right. And so what it is be present in the moment, meaning like when you're at work, be focused on your work. Be focused on doing a great job. But once you're gone from there, you now need to say, I am focused on my spouse, right? If you don't have, if then and then your kids, if you have kids, or even if you have, even if you're just dating with a girlfriend, like if because my hope is that you'd be pursuing it to be a real foundational, be married, all that kind of stuff. And if that is the case, right, she deserves, right, that level of attention, right, because she's what's important in that moment, not work. Work is done, right, for that day, right? And so I think, again, it's challenging for men because that's just how we're wired, right? We're again, biologically, right, we're much more oriented to things or work, right, where women are much more oriented towards, being around people and relationships, all that kind of stuff, right? And so we that can be you can be challenged with that, right, in your life. And so it's just about being in the moment where you are, right? When you're at work, give it everything you got, right? Be focused, do a great job, right, for your business or for your employer or whatever, depending on what your work situation is, right? And when you're with your family, give your family that attention, right?
Hang
Give
up
them
and
what
hang
they
out.
want. Yes.
It's hard for me to do. I mean, especially if you're a workaholic. It's more like social media and stuff for me when I get home, but
Mm-hmm.
to be able to put that down and give them that quality time. I mean, everybody struggles with, I think, that to some extent. Maybe for men, it's a little bit harder. Women can come home, and honestly, I always joke. I mean, I did not coin this phrase. My wife did early on in marriage when we had our first kid, but she called it switching hats. And maybe it's how the woman brain works, is prioritizing, what role they need to be for that moment. But if they work a day job and then I got to pick up little Johnny from daycare, and then I come home and I'm going to cook, clean, and then maybe somehow find a way to be a wife at the end of it. They can switch those hats. It may be harder for them, but especially when it comes to like household responsibilities or especially the children, they can flip flop easy. Me personally, the way I'm wired, I don't know about all males, but I'm going to venture to guess it's pretty similar. It's hard to switch. I'm just me, like one way, and I'm trying to multitask, and I'm always on. It's never just like, okay, now I'm in dad mode, now I'm in work mode, now I'm in, it's the same me all the time, juggling all at once up in here.
Yeah. And, I think it's just, and to what he was saying about investing in them, I'm really big about like with right now what we have is Eli going to preschool a couple
Mm-hmm.
times a week. So I'm big on like, tell me about your day,
Mm-hmm.
right? What did you do? What did y'all talk about today, right? What did you, and he'll elaborate. He'll talk about stories about things he did with the kids and in his class, and they did this, they did that, and all kind of stuff.
Well, part of it's just intel. Like, let me get the scoop on this teacher. Let me see what they're learning.
Yeah. Well, it's Catholic school, so it makes it a little bit easier. But
Dude, 2 days ago, yesterday, I picked up my son with my wife and daughter because I got home a little early, so we all went.
yeah,
And in the back of the car, he's starting to talk about on the way to his like basketball practice, talking about how back in the day, like brown kids weren't allowed to be with white kids or something like that. So we kind of like start to listen and like, what'd you say? Because he's talking to my daughter in the back, not even to us. And he was talking about like, long time ago, they weren't allowed to sit together and they weren't to do this. So we're like, my wife's over mouth. I'm like, is he talking about segregation? Are they learning about segregation? Seems a little young. I'm like, well, just like let them go.
just
let him cook.
What is he saying, right?
Long story short, pretty much, yeah. I don't know if he said it was from teachers, but I don't know if that's something they're learning or if it just happened to come up. But about how I guess in old times, I guess it was bad people and they weren't allowed to sit together and all that. And now everybody's mixed and happy. So I don't know. I guess it seemed like a good teaching moment, but it was something that kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, to that credit, if we didn't poke and prod or ask how his day was every single time, and we have a little 5-year-old teenager, a 6-year-old teenager, mind you. So some days he rolls his eyes, oh, nothing. I learned nothing. And some days he's like, how was school? It was good. And other days he's like super excited. He's like, I did this, and this. So
Yeah.
you're going to have all that. But if you don't ask, then you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and the thing is, I do that even with my daughter, right? Because even though she's at home or whatever, most of the time she doesn't have school or anything like that.
What'd you do today?
Yeah.
I played with blocks. I know, I saw you, but I'm still going to ask.
Yeah. Or especially if she, a lot of times, Christina will go out and about with her, at least, even, just walking around Target or whatever, just something, right? Just to get her out of the house, all that kind of stuff. And, just let her express, what they did and what happened. And, sometimes she'll say, oh, like, I was really good. So, because I was good, mama took me to Chick-fil-A, and, whatever. Right. And just asking them about their day and lets them know that you're invested in what they have to say and invested.
You're taking an interest.
Yeah.
It gives their life value and meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you wanna again, it's about edifying them, right? And giving them the understanding of like, dad sees you, dad wants to know about you, dad wants to be involved, he wants to be there with you, and that's key. And what's funny? Just going back to what you were saying earlier is like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some people like this. Like, I don't know people that are our age that have large friend groups. Like, because when I think about it now, I have like 4 guys, right, that are like solid friends, like solid, like we'll see them, would spend time with them, all this kind of stuff. Maybe like 5, but like 4 very, very solid. All happen to be in my wedding. Actually, all happen to be in my wedding. Which I don't think is a coincidence, right? And that's it. Like, I have people I'm friendly with, or if they wanted to see me, well, probably not. Actually, that's a lie.
There's even friends who were at my wedding that I could still say are friends, but that tight core group.
Yeah.
I'm talking like a solid, I've got like 2 or 3 guys that I know I could pick up the phone right now or call them at 3 a.m. and say, I need you to get here. And they would book a flight and be here.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the same. Yeah, the only one of them would have to book a flight, but the other 3.
But the fact that you know
here.
they would,
Yeah,
is what matters. Like, one may be out of town for work in New Mexico, and he'd be like, "All right, it's going to take me 9 hours, but I'm leaving now. I'm leaving the job right now."
yeah,
I know they would, and I think that's really all that matters. Forget everything else, man.
yeah,
I mean, it's okay to have acquaintances. Yeah, okay, I haven't talked to you in a couple of years. I know we were tight, but like, let's get dinner. Cool, let's catch up. Other than that, like, what do you need?
yeah. And so I think that's important. And again, I know like the examples talked about golf buddies, or like for the wife, like, you know, having girls' night. I mean, I don't know. We just don't do that kind of stuff. I mean,
eventually you'll come back around. You'll have the girls' night, the book clubs, whatever. You'll start golfing. Golf's pretty chill, by the way. I've only been a few times, but
I would like to golf. You should get a set of clubs so that we can go golf.
I just bum everybody else's. Freaking wreck them. Just fucking smash.
Well, I know. That's why
I don't smash in like a predictable way, but I smash. It may go off into the interstate, but I smash. But I think that time's going to come around. But the point is, we prioritize our family first.
Yeah.
That's what we chose to do, and that's why we're sitting up here on this soapbox, so to speak, talking about the things we've learned, because we're doing it firsthand.
Yeah.
We took these values to heart. It's how we were raised. We have shared interest, and we're putting these out on a platform for y'all to digest. We're not just sitting here talking about freaking Jake Paul and who's winning the fight, like a bunch of other kids our age could be doing, or streaming, or Pokemon Go, or trading cards. I mean, there's a million different things we could be doing. Instead, we're choosing to use this platform to talk about family values, you know, just, I wouldn't even say red pill movement, because that's not us, but like masculinity in a positive way. We were covering politics quite a bit in the current comings and goings the last couple of years, but things that matter to us and that matter to everyday Americans as it comes and goes, because we're going through it. And because we chose to prioritize that, I'm not worried about golf buddies. I'll get back to that place, you know, in a couple of years. Let my first one be graduated or something. I get a little bit of free time, but
yeah, I need to go out to the range. So on that note, yeah, I think that too. I mean, it covers it. Again, we got through our goal. We were able to get through 4 of them, right? So we were
that
able to be a
4
little bit more
for part
focused,
4.
right? So exactly 4 left for part 4, right? It'll be the final part. And again, I really hope that you guys are getting a lot of this, because I think there's some value here, even if you don't have kids, that you can take, right, and apply to yourself. But you know, again, what you just said, we care about family values. We care about creating strong families and having a good foundation of how to take care of your kids, how to raise your kids, right, is a way to do this. Again, we don't pretend to be experts, right, but we see value in this, and so we thought we needed to share it with you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. Again, down below, like, subscribe, share the show with your friends, right? Leave a comment, especially if you know his reference to poets. Many of you probably don't know, but if you do, you should comment if you recognize or know that reference, right? As far as that bar and where it is, right? I'm just saying you should definitely comment below. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, like, subscribe. You can find us on Apple and Spotify as well if you like the audio versions. It is current now, because he uploaded like 4 episodes at one time.
You have to sell me out
So-
like that.
So you out. They got the notification.
Some of us do more work than others. I'm just saying.
That is true. So anyway, that's all for this week. We will see you next week for the final and part of the Raising Kids series. It's gonna be good. The last 4 are great. It's gonna be awesome. We'll see you next week.
Later.